Welcome to the Sustaining Career Pathways Funding, Leadership, Policy, and Professional Development Seminar. This is part of the Building a Virtual Community of Practice on Promising and Effective Youth and Adult Career Pathways, what we fondly call the YAP series. There are a series of webinars throughout the year, and they will be posted on the links website, and I'll give you all that information at the end of the webinar today. I suppose I should introduce myself. Hello, I'm Debbie Mills, and I work for CORD. I'm Vice President of Partnerships there, and I'm also the Director of the National Career Pathways Network, which is a membership network of practitioners across the nation that are implementing, developing and implementing career pathways. I happen to be a subject matter expert for both OVE Careers Pathways Initiative and also for the Department of Labor. I've been a previous practitioner at the community college level and also at the high school level. Here's what we're going to do today. Globalization continues to bring systemic changes to the traditional economic and social core of America. And so we really need to look at how we're going to sustain the pathways that we develop for youth and also for adults. So our webinar topics today will be a framework for career pathway funding. We'll look at the overview of funding. We'll talk a little bit about the return on investment. We'll look at how to develop a career pathways funding team and who should be on that team. Look at constructing a plan for career pathways. What are the objectives? What will be the focus area? And then we're going to look a little bit about the money, show me the money. And then a second and third part of this webinar today will be policy and professional development. So let's begin on the funding plan. A sustainable revenue plan requires not only startup and initial year of operation, but a realistic view of funding over a period of years. Public-private projects require revenues from three sources: public, private, and profit. We call that the 3 Ps. The initial funding comes from public sources, which provide for the basic startup level required to operate the program. The next P, private funding, includes the funding that should be used to ensure excellence and uniqueness. This level of funding enables the project to address future needs and changes while meeting current expenses. The final P is for profit. For any organization or program or project to sustain itself over time, there must be more revenue than expenses. All government and nonprofit organizations must operate in a profit mode, even though their revenue is not generated by for-profit activities, and their goal is not a financial gain. While the Career Pathways Funding Plan will have an overall workforce, economic, and quality of life message, it should also have a set of clear measurements of return on investment for the stakeholders. The return on investment for the educational system is an increased number of students earning credentials and degrees, enhanced student engagement, reduced dropouts, reduce remedial course enrollment, increase the numbers of students going to college. And when I say college, I don't mean just a 4-year degree. We're looking at other training facilities. The return on investment for policymakers should be an increase the impact of the funding programs, getting bang for their buck, improve outcomes based on the growth of society, and drive economic and quality of life success. Employers need to have access to qualified workers, increase productivity, reduce recruitment cost and turnover, and shorten new employee orientation times and reduce expenditures. They need a quality pool of loyal employees to promote from, and they also need to upgrade the skills for incumbent workers. The return on the investment for community is multifold. alignment of economic development vision with the workforce advancement, the ability to retain and attract employers with a labor pool, increase the level of incomes for the community, which when in more likelihood will reduce poverty, crime, and support cost. With this webinar, we have a series of tools, and the first tool is a return on investment worksheet or inventory that will give you really just a form to jot down some notes about the stakeholder, return on investment measures, and the potential resources for startup or sustainability. Let's look at the Career Pathway funding team. Building successful career pathways funding requires developing collaborative partnerships that leverage the expertise, capabilities, capacity, and resources of a community. The partners play a role in creating and/or sustaining implementation of the project. All partners can add value to the project and may provide different types of resources, including the following: staffing, cash, grant funds, facilities, equipment and tools, supplies, other services, technology, transportation, curriculum or training materials, maybe supplies such as books, and career services. Funding will come from a variety of partners and sources. Internal sources of revenue should be included. Look at the team a little closer. We're looking at needing a lead organization and contact. We need that to drive the funding planning process and be responsible for the accounting and evaluation of fiscal success of the project. It is recommended that a career pathway funding executive committee be established to develop the plan, supervise, guide, direct, and motivate the partnering organizations. Should be co-chaired if you have a career pathways project manager or director or coordinator, and maybe the college president or superintendent if it's a secondary to post-secondary. The funding executive committee meets as often as necessary, usually on a monthly basis, to evaluate progress and determine the action required to maintain the sustainability, continuing it, and the momentum of the Career Pathways project. The committee often includes internal and external leadership as demonstrated on the slide. Your external leaders may be Workforce Investment Board, you may have a prominent industry leader, you may have an adult education leader, you may have a customized training leader, you may have a community-based organization leader. Internal leadership may include the college president, the project manager or coordinator, maybe an academic officer, maybe financing and accounting, workforce development, institutional or foundational officer, and maybe a faculty member that is a subject matter expert in the targeted industry. The Career Pathways Funding Executive Committee should be reviewing these areas to review Career Pathways impact and determine the development and funding consideration, and also clarifying responsibilities and roles. They need to define what a career pathways is. They need to measure and evaluate financial performance. They must provide for long-term security. They need to identify startup and sustainable revenue sources. They need to identify the quantity, identify the expenses and how big they're going to be to begin the program, and what are the expenses required to sustain the program. And you must network with all those available relationships and methods to raise and sustain the community awareness and funding investments. Framework for creating a funding plan. You will have a tool, the second tool that comes with this is a tool for framework for creating a funding plan that looks at the community and workforce outlook, the current measures of program success, operational challenges, staffing roles, partnering opportunities, educational partnering, community-based organization, marketing branding efforts, future program outcomes, sufficient support for startup and to sustain, and sources. So we're looking at career pathway funding focus areas where once we've identified our return on investment for the community, we've come together with a team who's going to be on the team. We need to look at where are we going to focus our funding at. Colleges often identify 3 general focus areas in their pursuit. Colleges are a community. I say colleges because so many times the colleges take the lead. The community often identifies 3 general focus areas in the pursuit of career pathways funding from government, community organizations, and or the private sector, which includes corporate, foundation, and so forth. Career pathways development. For employers, a better trained workforce leads to lower cost, higher employee retention, greater productivity, and better economic competitiveness. The ability to launch new programs to respond promptly to evolving needs is dependent upon the ability to draw upon a source for immediate funding. Available funding is essential in empowering the college to proactively develop a new career pathways to certificate, degree, credentials that align with emerging business and industry needs. Startup funding are also required to create innovative incumbent workforce training programs. Additionally, the college must have the capacity to respond quickly to the state's needs by investing in new initiatives, curriculum development, professional development for instructors, equipment, community outreach. In some instances, contributions to the funds may be used to leverage significant matching grants. This fund will provide the necessary resources for the college or community to respond to the rapidly changing needs of industry, individuals, and the community for years to come. Another funding focus area may be instructional and technology excellence. For career pathways to provide a highly qualified workforce for business and industry, students and instructors must have access to the latest equipment and technology. Keeping pace with the accelerating advancement in technology is an increasing costly consideration. Through effective hands-on instruction with industry standard equipment and technology, students are transported to the work environment and presented with a realistic, real-world problems and situations. Students are challenged to incorporate practical applied skills, critical thinking skills, and problem-solving skills to ultimately understand and solve the problems and situations that they'll face in the workforce. Funding will allow career pathways to continue to deliver high-quality training and instruction by providing resources for the purchase of technology, equipment, and program design to support student learning. A third focus area, which we'll divide it down even further, is career pathways, student support, and success. This fund will enable the Career Pathways Project to support the development of the region's business and industry communities by producing graduates trained to meet the workforce requirements necessary for continued economic growth. Career Pathways scholarships will increase access to higher education, enhance recruitment and retention of students, particularly those who are economically disadvantaged, provide resources to lead to the completion of degrees, certificates, career academies, career skill programs, and offer assistance to students who do not qualify for federal and state funding sources. Funding would support student needs for tuitions, fees, books, equipment, child care, and transportation. Your efforts could be focused on supporting champions adult education career pathways, or campus scholars. In Champions, you're providing funding to students who graduate from the region's high school to support enrollment, promote the value of higher education, and build awareness of career pathways opportunities. Maybe you need to support or focus on adult education career pathways, providing funding to support adult students who enroll in the program to launch new careers or enhance their current career paths. The program specifically targets populations that need a second chance at education, such as individuals with GEDs, high school graduates who do not go to college, college dropouts, foreign-born U.S. residents, returning veterans, and ex-offenders who've served their terms. Maybe you want to focus on campus scholars. Support students who have completed a minimum of 24 hours of instructions who are enrolled in a transfer-oriented program seeking to further their higher education at a partnering college or other institution if you're a community college or technical college. You will have to decide what is the funding, where you need to focus your funding. Let's talk about the money. Show me the money. Funding the startup can be one of the most difficult challenges. It is imperative that students experience learning using industry standard equipment, and that can be costly, especially in certain programs. An additional challenge is to avoid investing in technology that is obsolete or soon will be. Very difficult in this age, huh? With the rate of technology of the innovation impacting almost every occupation, what used to be considered a long-term capital expense is becoming a supply budget that must be constantly refreshed or replaced. Just think about how quickly we put our laptops out to pasture. The college cannot count solely on historically reliable internal resources such as earmarks from tax funds. The college or the community must consider external sources and develop a strong case for funding to capture cash, or maybe in-kind equipment or technologies and supplies or staffing support. With the economic pressures placed on business and industry, private sources of funding for industry-specific programs should not be the sole source of startup funds. It's just not there in this type of economy. Startup resources are likely to be the results of commitment from the college and multiple stakeholders in the community. Categories of budgeting considerations for the startup phase include the following: staffing and administrative support, maybe you need to do a community needs assessment, you need to develop the career pathway, maybe students need support funding, maybe there needs to be curriculum development. There's always recruitment, marketing, and public relations, and possibly even a facility, for sure probably technology, tools, and equipment. The career pathway startup budget must be based on a strategic view of where the occupational area is going to be in the next 3 to 5 years. With some technology becoming obsolete before it reaches the marketplace, depreciation and obsolete should be included in the startup budget. If they are not part of the startup and all the subsequent revenue plans, the career pathways will become non-competitive in the educational marketplace and useless to business and industry. Funding for sustainable career pathways operations. Educational leaders are under increasing pressure to address declining educational, social, and economic conditions in their community. The focus is often on finding and implementing new solutions to old problems and not on sustaining existing programs. The what is next mindset of always looking for resources to keep up with the new and different workforce must be shared with a view of sustaining a level of excellence in all programs. The sustainable revenue plan and budget should be developed at the greatest degree of inclusion and detail as possible. Every effort should be made to identify and accurately project revenue streams from all sources and by all available methods. So we all have to come to the table and lay it on the table what revenue sources there are. On the screen is a list of possible revenue funding streams that should be considered in the development of the plan. It includes tuition, maybe non-credit enrollment tuition, student facility fees, student program fees, any grants, any state tax, maybe you have a city tax or a county tax, federal, operational redirection where you can redirect monies. Maybe you can charge fees for training, fees for services. Maybe there's partnership sponsors, private donations, loans, fines, sale of goods, bonds. There's a multiple variety of sources that we need to look at and bring to the table. Sustaining a program after the newness and excitement has passed is where true leadership is required. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of the newness, only to find that the newness has an ever-decreasing shelf life with traditional funding sources. Each new career pathway comes with new hope for students and for your community. With enough excitement and pressure, traditional funding entities could be persuaded to provide initial fund for the program without a plan for sustaining the program over time at a level of excellence. So many times we may get a grant or may get the commitment to get the initial startup, but we must have a plan to sustain it. Due diligence and research should replace estimating whenever possible when determining the cost or expense and the implementation of career pathways. Examples for expenses include the following: the development, the instruction, the curriculum, maybe you need lead staff, student support, support staff, professional development, marketing, public relations, information technology, equipment, supplies, facility, utilities for that facility, travel to go look at best practices or other, repair, remodeling, depreciation. Without a sustainable revenue source, the startup budget will soon become the start downward budget. Revenue streams that do not sustain excellence are ensuring that the project will have a slow and painful existence, if not death. The sustainable revenue plan and budget worksheets should remain the living documents throughout the life of the Career Pathways program. They should be regularly reviewed and updated as events and changes take place to either document. So that is a quick review of funding considerations. I want to give thanks to Bob LePage, who helped me so much with the notes. We're going to move into policy to sustain career pathways. There are also policies in place to sustain. Strong programs of study result from coordination across state, local, and stakeholder agencies. Development of a program of study or career pathway includes analysis of labor market information to determine which career pathway will result in high demand jobs, input from stakeholders that is genuine and sustained, and funds dedicated to both initial development as well as sustaining, as we've talked. On your screen you have the first component of what we call the 10 components that came from the Department of Ed about how to implement a program of study. We call these the 10 components. On the right of your screen you can see a copy of the entire document, Programs of Study, Local Implementation Readiness, and Capacity Self-Assessment, a tool for local college and career readiness. Of the 10 components, the first component is legislation and policies. and it talks about federal and state and local legislation or administrative policies need to promote the development and implementation of career pathways. That effective legislation and policies should provide for state and local funding and other resources, such as professional development and dedicated staff time for the development of a career pathways. That the policies should establish formal procedures for the design and implementation and continuous improvement of a career pathway. Policies should ensure opportunities for any learner to participate in a career pathway, and they should require, policies should require secondary students to develop an individual graduation or career pathways plan, and that we should provide resources so that we can sustain it. When we look at what we need to do, when we look at existing policies and trying to determine, the first thing is an inventory. We need to review and revise existing college or school district or post-secondary institutional policies and examine the procedures to determine what impact will existing policy have on a career pathways implementation. This is a good starting point to determine if they will promote or conflict with the career pathway. Also, we need to look at state level policies. We may want to look at the state Perkins Plan, grant guidelines, and application materials. If the school district or college have already policies established, you may want to look at, make sure that you have in that the mission and vision of career and technical education programs, the procedures for informing students of career pathways, career development policies and practices, work-based learning opportunities. We also need to determine and ensure educational professionals, students, and community stakeholders are aware of the policies. So many times we have existing policies that may promote or at least not conflict with career pathways, but nobody knows about them. So first and foremost, all stakeholders involved in this process should be aware and working within the existing or maybe newly developed policy and procedures supporting programs of study or career pathways implementation. This may involve a school or post-secondary institution evaluating stakeholders' knowledge and application of the policy and procedures, understanding what's in the state Perkins Plan, and reviewing the Perkins local grant applications. Those are examples of policy knowledge for applications to career pathways. This could also be part of the professional development process. We also need to provide for sufficient funding and other resources for career clusters, career pathways implementation. Time and again, we've talked about it in the last one, in the last module of this webinar about funding, that you can get enthusiastic about developing a career pathway, but the passion can die by limitations and challenges presented by policies. So we need to dispel the attitudes, what is the minimum we have to do to be in compliance for Perkins, and go beyond to innovation. You may need to have ongoing studies to determine the needs of the educational professional to take the pathways to the next level of deeper and meaningful implementation. You may need funding to support professional development, and we're going to talk about that in our next module of this webinar. Because we need, there may need to be time for dedicated time blocks to meet as a pathway team with stakeholders and partners to develop and update the curriculum, connect with partners to develop review, articulation agreements, dual credit, so forth. There needs to be formal procedures for the needs assessment on the design, implementation, and continuous quality improvement of career pathways. Education professions from both secondary and post-secondary should work as a team with other education and business and industry, legislative, workforce, and economic and development partners to conduct needs assessment relating to workforce and labor market information. In other words, we want to do this as a team. You may be looking at your economic development stakeholders in your community, and they may already do some type of needs assessment, and you may need to look at that or add to that so we can make sure that we understand the needs of the community and that we are developing the right career pathways for our community. The team should determine which career pathway is needed to be developed in the community, and we need to make sure that there's a uniform process for accomplishing that task. We need to ensure that there's opportunity for all students to participate, or any student to participate and succeed in a career pathway. Not only should we be concerned about the support for educational professionals and stakeholders, we need to make sure that every student in the community has equal opportunity to participate and be successful in completing a career pathway or program of study. We need to provide resources for long-term sustainability. When we look at our policies, it's important to understand that it may take several years to launch and needs to be reviewed continuously on a long-term basis. So we need to in recap, first thing to do is review what existing policies we have. We may need to revise them. We need to make sure that people know about those policies and procedures. We need to look at funding, which we talked in the first module. We need a formal procedure working with all stakeholders on what are the needs assessment for the business community. What career pathways should we be offering? What are the exit points in that career pathway? And then we need to make sure that any and all students can participate and look at the long-term sustainability. Again, another tool that goes with this webinar, this is tool 3, policy checklist. It's much bigger than what's on the screen there. It goes through lots of different policies and procedures. You can look at the checklist. There are needs to be considered in the planning stage, partially implemented, or fully implemented. So this will give you a checklist to start looking at those policies and procedures. Let's look at professional development. In your in the 10 components from OVE, or the Department of Ed, the third component is professional development, and it talks about sustained and intensive focus opportunities for administrators, teachers, which includes secondary, post-secondary, career technical ed, and academic, to foster career pathways design, implementation, and maintain. We need to look at the alignment of curriculum from secondary to post-secondary. We need to look at that vertical curriculum alignment. In addition, we need to look at the horizontal curriculum alignment, integrating academic and career technical education. So we need to ensure that faculty has the content knowledge to align this and integrate this curriculum. And we need to look at different innovative and teaching and learning strategies, and especially looking at contextual teaching methodologies, or how the brain learns with project-based learning and so forth. When you look at career pathways, there's an awareness stage. When I look at what needs to happen in professional development, I can see that there's an awareness stage, That's kind of the big overview, the big picture. And then there's an awareness stage of the different components of a career pathways. And then we get into what I call the intensive sustainable stage. When I look at what needs to happen in professional development, a good place to start are the 10 program of study components that I've been referencing throughout the webinar. They are on the right of your screen: legislation and policies, partnerships, professional development, accountability and evaluations, college and career readiness, course sequences, credit transfer agreements including dual credit, guidance and counseling, academic planning, teaching and learning strategies, and technical skills assessment. The first thing is that your stakeholders need to understand what is a career pathway, why are we doing a career pathways, what is the need for a career pathway, and what are the components of a good career pathway. So I think there's an awareness stage that's kind of a big overview. I think the next level of professional development is more specifically looking at each of those components. And you may want to look at different stakeholders when you deal with specific components. For example, in partnerships, you may be dealing more with administrators or CTE directors, business and industry. You may not be dealing with every single teacher in the building. There's different stakeholders will need more in-depth on different components. We'll need more in-depth training or professional development on different components. I think there's, from that level where they're aware of the 10 components and have a better understanding, I think we need to dig deeper, and I call this an intensive sustainable stage. And let me give you some examples of that. A vertical articulation is needed, and when I think of vertical articulation, I specifically think of 9 through 14, if not 9 through 16. But we need to look at, in a career pathway, we're developing curriculum that lays over to institution. In other words, we're not developing, if we're developing a new career pathways program, we're not developing the secondary piece and then developing the post-secondary piece. We're developing at least a 9 through 14 piece or 9 through certificate piece, whatever the exit points happen to be. We're developing that, and two institutions, secondary and post-secondary, are going to deliver that curriculum. In addition, we need to look at horizontal articulation, where we're looking at academic and technical, where academic is supporting or applying the academics' their content to the world of work, and career and technical education is supporting the standards in the academic standards. If you're at the adult level, you may be looking at horizontal articulation between adult education and career technical education, to where students are learning in the context of a work world. I think with education and business, we need education out to business. And I think there's, again, two levels to that. There's an awareness stage where maybe teachers, and when I say teachers, I'm talking, I should say educators. I'm talking academic teachers, CTE teachers, administrators, counselors, and secondary and post-secondary, where they need to look at the business community, go out and maybe tour a business, an industry, to learn what it looks like, maybe sit down with human resources to talk about what are the skill sets that are needed in that specific industry or different occupations. And I think that's kind of the awareness stage. But I think we need to get to more of an intensive and sustainable stage by having those students maybe more in-depth, where they're developing a process or a product based on that industry. So one is kind of an awareness, and the other one's more in-depth. I also think industry needs to help education. industry spends about 5% of their budget on education and training for their employees. Many times there's an empty seat there. Bring in a teacher. This is especially helpful for a CTE teacher that was maybe trying to learn different standards in an industry. We need to look at getting education out to business and industry from the student's point of view. If you think of a student, I'm in a career pathways, let's say it's a 9 through 14 career pathways, and I'm going to exit out at the community college level with a technical associate degree, and let's take manufacturing. If at the high school level, I have if you think of my course sequence, at the high school level, I have an English teacher, a math teacher, I have science teachers, I have career technical ed teachers, and I have a counselor. When I go to the local community college or technical college, I will have an applied communications teacher, maybe a technical math teacher, and of course career technical ed teachers, and I'll have a career advisor at the post-secondary institution. What if we put all those groups or representatives from all those groups together and put them out to business and industry? So I'm talking about a secondary science teacher, math teacher, English teacher, CTE teacher, and also the counselor at the high school level, putting them with post-secondary communications teacher, technical math teacher, career technical ed teacher, and maybe their career advisor, putting all those folks together out to business and industry together. Oh my goodness, wouldn't that be wonderful? Just think what the bus ride or the van ride would be. I mean, the more you can get these people together, you're talking about vertical articulation happening informally. And then if you think of don't think of articulation just as an articulation agreement. Articulation really means a smooth transition. The articulation agreement happens to be the formality of it in the issuing of credit, or maybe even with dual credit. But I don't want you to get hung up on the agreement. What I'm saying is that those people would be together and talking, and wonderful things can come out of that. So that might be one professional development you may want to look at. So when we look at professional development, I really see these areas that come to mind right off the bat. First of all, there needs to be kind of a Career Pathways 101. What is it? What's it look like? What are the 10 components? I also think with that, we need to educators especially need to understand the connection between what education does and the economy. That we are really providing a service for the economy, and what we do can make or break the economy. They need to understand with that what the labor market looks like, what's going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years, what occupations are needing, what kind of skill sets. So now we start looking at curriculum. What kind of skill sets are needed to be in our curriculum to match what business and industry needs. With that, teaching the same old way is not going to reach any more students, so we need to look at what teaching methodologies are we using. Are we teaching contextually? Are we teaching the way the brain learns? Do we have project-based learning involved, work-based learning? Do we have integration going on? In adult education, do we have the bridge programs that help students bridge it from a GED to the college? Are those bridge programs a merger of adult ed and career technical ed? Do we have the right counseling? If you don't have a K through 14, K through 16, or I should say K to grade counseling system in the community, you won't have a career pathway system. Counseling is a huge part of this, and it's not just the counselor's job to counsel students on career pathways. A counselor gets a student maybe once a semester, maybe a couple if they're lucky, and teachers, faculty members, and other community members see those students many, many more times. So we're all counselors. Counselors should be facilitators of a career development system, but we're all career development helpers, so to speak. Work-based learning, getting teachers to business and industry. Work-based learning for both the student and the teacher. What are the credentials? Many teachers think of credentials or exit points as degrees, associate degree, bachelor's degree, master's degree. There's a whole other set of credentials in different industries that we do not know about in education. So that is another area of professional development. College and career readiness. There's been a big movement in that, but how does that relate to career and technical ed? If I was, I've been a CTE teacher in my life, and if I was in the classroom now, I'd be looking at those English and math standards and seeing how I could support them. But on the other hand, there are the common core, so to speak, for CTE. How many academic teachers, for that matter, how many CTE teachers are familiar that we have the common technical core now? So all those need to be brought to the table, and there needs to be different levels of professional development. Big order, isn't it? In your, with this webinar series is another tool called the Professional Development Checklist. And it's just to get the discussion started. I put this in with the Career Pathways team and ask these questions. Do you agree that the CTE faculty understands the labor market? Disagree, agree, kind of neutral, whatever. Do you think the academic or general ed faculty understands the labor market? Does the counseling staff? Do they understand how the education and economy is connected? There's a whole series of questions on this sheet. Your screen only shows 6 questions, but there's a whole series of statements to get the discussion going about where do we need to focus our professional development first. Well, we had a short time together, and what we did was look at the framework for career pathways funding, looking at public, private, profit, return on investment. We talked a little bit about a funding team. We looked at the focus areas for our funding. We talked about policy and professional development. All of these things are necessary for sustaining a career pathways. All of this will be posted on the Links website. If you just Google Links, L-I-N-C-S, you can get there. That's how I usually do it. The next step, we will post this webinar, and since it's not live and you're listening to it, that means it's already been posted. We'll also post additional resources. I have a variety of other resources besides the 4 tools that we've referenced today in the webinar. I'm going to do some more resources and some additional discussion so we can learn from each other. So I hope that you found this helpful. Again, this is Debbie Mills, Director of the National Career Pathways Network, and this was one of the series for the Youth and Adult Pathways micro group series, and we will be closing the webinar today, which was entitled Sustaining Career Pathways, Funding, Leadership, Policy, and Professional Development. Thank you so much for your time, and good luck to you. My email address is dmills, D-M-I-L-L-S, @cord, C-O-R-D, .org, dmills@cord.org. Thank you and good luck.